To record. Welcome everyone to today is day what are we, 22? Are we 22?
Oh my God, I wasn't even thinking about that. Yeah, I think we are.
I think it is. I think it's day 22. How exciting. And
The days dwindle down to
and
a few. December. It is a good Harold Arlen song.
yeah. Yes. So we are rapidly approaching the climax and eventually the conclusion of these 30 days together, which has been really, really exciting. I can't even begin to tell you what it's been for me. So the purpose of today is to give people an opportunity to share, to talk with us, to share what they're getting out of the experience, out of their journaling, out of the sessions we've had together. Give everybody an opportunity also to ask questions, make comments. Really would love to have as many people as possible share. And so we'll see who joins us. And if not, we'll be, John and I will be chatting with each other again.
There we go.
So, Rose, I guess you can't really hear us, or maybe you can, but you can't speak. I don't see any other, indication there, but that's all right. If you are just seeing this in the recording form, we so far it looks like we've got 3 people, John and myself and one other person on. We are expecting a number of people to come, and it is also the last shopping Saturday before Christmas. So, so who knows? People might be shopping around. But it's only we got one more person coming in. There's Jan. Jan, thanks for joining us. That's great. So we are going to tomorrow be continuing on a conversation about the accelerator called Being Related to Others and All of It. So we will continue on that, and it starts to heat up and get very exciting, and then we're going to shift into the third and final of those accelerators for much of the duration, and then we'll do a summary session that'll sort of review some things, and then the Christmas Eve we'll do another sharing session with everybody, kind of our own little holiday party, Advent party, and complete this experience together. So I am really looking forward to getting feedback from all of you. If you weren't able to be on this live, I do invite you to share in the chat. And you can video share too, by the way. It is possible for you to share something in video if you'd like to, or audio for that matter. Facebook gives you that opportunity. Just click on the link for that. So, John, I think we'll open it up. Again, I'm not sure if everybody can hear us and if everybody's unmuted. Good. Jan's saying yes. And she can hear. So we're just going to invite people to share what they're getting out of this, what they're experiencing, and or any questions about the process so far and the sessions that we've had or topics. And I have some things that I'll be sharing that are kind of contextual for the writers, kind of about this process for me as well. So, Jan, did you want to share? I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you'd like to share.
I'd like to give Rose the opportunity to go first.
Thank you. Well, I did
the last time.
Yes, that's right. That's right. We can't hear from Rose. We see that she's on there, but we're unable to hear her.
Rose is our international woman of mystery today.
Right.
We can't hear, we can't see her, but believe me, she's a presence to be reckoned with.
She is, definitely. There's no doubt about it. So,
so first of all, John, I'd like to point out that I am not in my pajamas.
Yes.
I'm still in bed.
Where are you sitting? Where are you sitting, Jan?
I did get up and get dressed, but then
Okay,
I fell
there
back
you
into bed.
There you
Sounds like a lovely thing to do on a Saturday morning.
go.
That's great. That's great.
So I'm not as prepared as I'd like to be for this discussion because I got hung up, as I am a wont to do, trying to format the values list, which came through the PDF, got sort of jumbled up, and so I spent the 40 minutes that I was supposed to spend journaling this morning, I spent futzing with the formatting of the PDF.
You know, if you just message, I'll send it to you. Again, I'll just clean it. I'll send you the clean one. Maybe through email is easier if you text me your email.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I've made an attempt to convert it to Word, but that's a pattern of mine where instead of doing the actual writing, I'll futz with the formatting for 40 minutes. It works very well when you're trying to avoid doing the actual work. So that's what I did this morning. But I want to talk about the discussion you had about pop and plateau. Mm-hmm. Which was really, really powerful for me. And it does match my journey completely in life. What's interesting to me about that is that when you, after a pop, you're on that accelerating phase for a while. It feels during that phase as though you're invincible. And as though you'll never forget what it's like to feel that way again. Now you've got it, and you're in the groove, and you're just onward sailing to the next level. Yes. And then somehow one morning you wake up and it's all gone and you can't find it. And for me, I then hibernate, lose my connection to other people, engage in a big pattern of self-indulgence, and lose all of that for a while. That's what the plateau looks like for me, is hibernation and self-indulgence. And I give myself permission to just be a child, really, to just lose all sense of personal responsibility and indulge every whim, which tend to be bad for me. And then eventually I claw my way back out into the world, reconnect, and work toward the next pop. But it feels like every time that happens, I lose ground.
Yeah.
And then somehow, mysteriously, when the next pop happens, it takes me further than I was at the point of the previous pop. So, but man, it's an ugly process.
I hear you. I definitely hear you. I feel like Jan, you've recreated my journey in many ways. Yeah.
So maybe that's universal. I don't know, but
I think it may be, starting with what you said about the pattern of. You didn't use the term avoiding, but it sounded like avoiding to me.
It is,
right? I think that is really universal. What do you think, John? It seems like
mainly where I am is I'm beginning to look at when we meet people, do we meet them when they are on their pop or their plateau? And are we on our pop or our plateau?
Absolutely.
Does my pop match your pop? Does my plateau match your plateau? If not, probably no relationship.
So profound. Yeah, absolutely. And it relates to that, what we were talking about yesterday about, do we relate to, first of all, ourselves as a ailment, clot of ailments? And if so, are we relating to others as their clot of ailments? Or are we relating to ourselves by our core values about what really matters to us and what we're really standing for? And I think my experience is that when I can wrestle with those demons myself, and I can actually restore myself to my stand, and as Krishnamurti said, observe without judgment, when I can actually just go, oh, that wasn't it, and restore myself back to what my commitment is, then I can easily relate to others out of their commitment, as their commitment. I can see it. It's like my ability to return myself to that seems to be a filter for my capacity to relate to others that way. So, I totally relate to you, Jan. And you mentioned about losing ground. I know that experience, and I have to believe that it's an illusion, because if you think about the balance metaphor and so many other things, you're really not losing. I get the experience that we feel like we've spiraled down or something like that, but actually you have all the distinctions. Any distinction that you have, so getting back on the horse is
there's something about when you pop, you're going into flow. I think that would be another way of saying that you go into flow. And when you go out of flow, it definitely does feel like you've gone backwards, even though all you've done is that's your normal.
Right. Yeah, and I so appreciate also, Jan, what you're saying about how you go into a kind of retreating from people, and the sense of maybe kind of indulgence was another term that you use, right? And I'm just wondering for myself whether what's missing isn't taking a pause for indulgence and being alone, solitude, as opposed to the idea that I'm isolated because I can't be with people, that I can't be out there. I just wonder if it's a self-care thing that's wanted and needed,
It may be, and I've considered that, but there's a sense of shame associated with it. Pardon me. That the reason I isolate myself is so that other people don't get to see this self-indulgent creature. They see the out in the world connected, magnanimous, generous person. They don't see the self-indulgent, so pretty version of that.
By clot of ailments. But when you look at that, Jan, and you see, okay, there's a sense of shame, which, by the way, is a sense of shame. It's not who you are. But one of the things is we begin to look at how much we are used by our ideals. And that your shame is only something that could possibly show up against your ideal of the ideal Jan in your own eyes, or the feedback that you're getting from other people. So you get this great feedback about the great magnanimous Jan, which, by the way, is accurate about you. And then you go into this place, you fall off the pop, and you're in the plateau, and feel like you've come out of flow and you're going backwards. And that sense of shame, something that you generate up, I'm going to just suggest that that's up against your own ideals. And that's a game that you don't really win at ever.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm also, I talk about this part-time gig that I have. I was there this morning. I work for an airline part-time, and I jokingly, but only half jokingly, refer to it as my Zen practice. And one of the really interesting things is the accountability that's there by virtue, this tight little community. There's 16 or 17 of us there. Not on any given day. There's only 5 or 6 of us on any given shift. But, I'm working with the same people day in and day out. And there's an accountability by virtue of my declarations with them. And 2 of them listen faithfully to this, right? And so they see, and we were there this morning at 5:00 sharp, and I got confronted by somebody who, there was something going on with them. There was something like off. And yet I got sort of drawn into it for a moment and really had to kind of hold my ground. And it was challenging. It was really challenging. And I know before, when I had those experiences, I had this judgment that followed of, I've lost ground. This is never, I'm never making any progress, in terms of my Zen, maintaining my center, keeping my peace and my joy, present. And what's really, really powerful is how with one of the participants who watches this, I was really able to get through it with velocity here. And she witnessed it and acknowledged it, that experience. Whereas I know that I would have spiraled a few years ago.
Nice.
Right? But my Zen practice has now kind of raised the bar for me. And I do think that accountability is a piece of it, that loop. It's very much about, the thing that Daniel Siegel was talking about how the interplay, that's that mindsight thing that I was talking about yesterday, that interplay between relationships, brain, and mind, the exchange of information, that they're all working together. By the way, the subtitle on this book is The New Science of Personal Transformation. So this is the very thing that he is talking about, So yeah, I think we're all in that same boat together. And the name of the game, my guru, Patricia McDade, used to say, how much can you hold? How quickly can you get off it, and how much can you hold? That was.
I wanted to talk a little bit. Pardon my interrupting, Mark.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to lose.
Please go. Yeah, go.
I've been thinking about how this relates to the concept of story, and story being the quest, your pursuit of a dream or a goal or an idea, and then the obstacles that occur. And speaking for myself, my life has been so blessed that the external obstacles are slim to none, certainly not interesting enough to comment on. And so the obstacles for me are the plateaus. That's where the obstacle occurs. I'm always the obstacle. It's almost never coming from outside of myself. And as in pursuit of a story, of telling that story as a writer, that strikes me as self-indulgent. That strikes me as not very interesting. How do I, is it necessary to make up the obstacles that haven't really existed from my perspective? Or is there a way to tell that obstacle as something of interest to somebody else when it truly is just self-indulgent?
Well, I think it's valuable. It's really valuable as long as you're really being honest about what your obstacles are. I've never found this formula of sharing when I'm being authentic, of sharing what I wanted, what I desired, and what I struggled with, to fail, to have people lean in and listen and be very interested. Because even though they don't struggle with the exact same circumstance, they almost always can relate to the inner dynamic of the struggle. And
I've been reading a guy named Jordan Peterson. He's a psychologist. Amazing.
I'm aware
and one of the things that he says, and I'm going to take this back to something you said, Jan, where you said it's indulgent and it's not worth commenting on, and so on like that. He did a whole lecture called 12 Rules for Life, and one of the rules, number 6, I believe it was stop saying the things that make you weak.
Mm.
And so, I just want to kind of bring that back to you, Jan, about you observed what it was. You're very good at pragmatically observing the things that they are. And then there's a little tag on that tends to undercut you. And in the case of what Peterson is saying is, by all means, make the comment, the observation and so on like that. Beware the tag that you put onto it, self-deprecating, but that makes you weak. Okay, I just want to kind of offer that.
Wow, that's great.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, we see Rose has joined us there.
Rose.
Can you?
Rose?
Yeah,
Yep.
I see Rose. Rose,
International Woman of Mystery.
an international woman of mystery, but her camera's frozen up now. Can you hear us, Rose? Can you hear us, Rose? Can you see us, Rose?
Yeah.
Our camera's frozen up now. Well, we are looking forward. Rose, if you get back in here, just chime in.
Yeah, when if ever.
When if ever, chime in, right? Isn't technology wonderful? So
isn't it semi-wonderful?
yeah. So, I don't, Jan, just to put a button on that, I don't know what the real, impediment is, if you will, the struggle. It's really just what comes in between you and your desire, your aspiration, your longing, and whatever that is, that's what wants to be shared authentically.
Max, you said that thing, I think it was in day 2 or 3, but it was one of the thieves.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that, essentially it was like, why me? What do I have to offer? Something along those lines.
Yeah.
And that's what I heard Jan say. She says, well, I look at it and then I think, well, that's hardly worth commenting on it at all. And then her little tag in about, not really, whatever, all of that sort of stuff. And I'm going, wow, just met the thief.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And
but it's so great that she shares that, because I can see that in myself. Yeah. I can see that I do that, and I can do, why would anybody want to pay attention to what I have to say? That sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, my whole business is structured around dealing with this issue with people. I basically coach people on their messaging and, help them either write speeches or books or, and the main core of it is, what do I uniquely have to offer and say? This is what people wrestle with. Right. And so let me tell you, that is a nearly universal thing that people struggle with is, who am I to offer this? So you remember it was about the 3rd or 4th day. I talked. Peter actually posted the the Bob Newhart thing. Stop it.
Yes, I love that piece.
So when you doubt that you have something to offer, stop it and offer it. Especially just offer it to someone that I think when somebody is really ready to hear, and you offer your wisdom and your insight and your especially your struggle and your experience, what you have to say becomes so much more articulate and juicy. In other words, that listening is there. And so, and this is what I set up with this. I set this up, this 30-day thing, so that I would have the ability to dance inside of a listening of an audience that is, or a group of people that are engaged with me. It makes me smarter, and it makes really the spirit move, what I have to offer flow, right? Yeah. And the problem comes, people, again, too often try to write in a vacuum,
Or or they actually cancel the other person's vote. You know, it is said that people vote with their feet. I think they vote with their eyes, and they vote with their attention span. And nonetheless, if we don't give them anything to vote upon, they're going to be off and running in the story of their own life anyway. So, you know, in terms of contributing to people, you know, you can tell when people are voting, you know, they roll their eyes, or their attention goes elsewhere, or they change the subject. But how tyrannical is it that we actually cancel the other person's vote before they have a chance to vote by not making our offer?
Yes.
Another book that has been extremely useful for me in this regard is Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic. And it's Elizabeth Gilbert of Eat, Pray, Love fame.
Sure.
People aren't aware of her. She starts off the book by talking about all of the things that frighten us, that keep us from expressing our own creativity. And the list is comprehensive, and you about a third of the way through, you start laughing because she hits every single story you've ever told yourself about why you can't be a writer, why you can't be an artist, why you can't be an interior designer, whatever your creative outlet is. And one of them is, who am I? What do I, you know, what do I possibly have to say?
Oh, that's great. I'm going to take that to heart. That sounds like something I definitely want to read. Hey, it's 11:56. I want to share that tomorrow I'm going to dive back into this conversation about story that you're talking about, Jan, and specifically look at, since we've talked about how in a very real sense we are a story and we are the author of the story. It's paradoxical, but you know, we are the story that we are telling, so to speak. And so I'm gonna bring that into the conversation about how we relate to others, and how, you know, that can seem like it turns into quite a muddled mess, but it actually can be really powerful to think in this paradigm in terms of really being able to allow people to be the space to be. And so that's what we're going to be exploring and unpacking. And then I will also that's where we're going with that tomorrow. So as far as journaling, I would recommend, you know, continuing to journal on the subject that we were on yesterday. Because it's definitely a huge it's a big topic. Excuse me. And then I just want to give heads up that I'm going to start to do a little bit of review of a longer swath of where we've been, because it all actually comes together. The pieces start to fit together. And I'm going to be gradually setting that up. And I've done more writing over the neck of the last third of this than I have of the first 2/3. So a lot more of what I've done, I'm going to attempt to convey without sounding like I'm reading, but I've actually done a lot more of the kind of finished writing, essentially, of the last a few days of the sessions, because that's where the pieces of the puzzle start to come together, and it gets kind of fun. So I'm really looking forward to these last few days with everyone, and I hope you are also looking forward to that. John, anything else you want to add in as we wrap up?
No, I think that's great. I would love, I know that you prepared and you have with you your reading list.
I do.
I think it would be great to just spend the last couple of minutes sharing the books that you're reading.
So everybody knows I've been reading Mindsight the last year or so. Another book that has really influenced me over the last couple of years on this topic is Alan Watts' The Wisdom of Insecurity. And this book, and by the way, there's a whole bunch of YouTube videos called this that are not this. There are other talks. But this was based on a series of talks that he gave in the 50s, I think, in the maybe 60s, yeah. And it's another one of those books that's just completely highlighted and written in by me. And he's just absolutely brilliant on and the idea of the wisdom of insecurity. He's just talking about how, well, I'll share more detail actually another day because there are some real key notes out of it. I'll get into it. Another author that I absolutely love in the world of transformation is George Leonard, and this is his book, The Life We're Given. Another one of his books that I've read and I've quoted from in this series is his book on mastery. Mastery is another. It's really a masterpiece on his part.
He is, just so it is noted, is also the guy that invented the samurai game.
Oh, right. Yes, he is. Right. So I mentioned Martin Seligman several times because I thought that Mindsight was written by him. That's Daniel Siegel. But Martin Seligman's more recent book is Flourish. And he's a positive psychologist. And he studies happiness, essentially. And his previous book was called Delivering Happiness. And this book is kind of a rehash of Delivering Happiness. And Tony Say. Right. Authentic Happiness was his previous book. Sorry. Authentic Happiness was his previous book. And he's just basically going through, and this is like take 2 on the information. And I found this to be really, really a great perspective. And I mentioned this yesterday, but this is the Book of Joy written by the Dalai Lama, the Dalai Lama and Bishop Tutu, right? Desmond Tutu. And it's actually written by a ghostwriter that I'm very, very envious of. who got to go on a trip with the two of them up to Dharamsala and spend a week with them.
Wow.
and record the sessions that became this book. I'm very, very envious of this guy, but it is really a beautiful, beautiful book. And I enjoyed it greatly. My approach to the information, there's little tidbits from there, but it's quite different, and I love what they have to say. And my whole approach to the topic of joy in this series is quite independent of that. In fact, I started reading it about the 3rd day of this course.
Max, we are going to have to close out, but I have a request.
Yeah.
If you can possibly work it in, that upon some point in time, you actually take a look at, recommend how to read a book.
Yes.
How to read a book, and then tell us how you read a book.
Yes, absolutely. I will make a point of it.
5 minutes on that. I think that would be great for people.
That'd be great. And as you can see, I'm quite an avid reader. And by the way, I have, I had learning disabilities as a kid. I really, really struggled to read as a youngster. And I really had to force myself through. And by the time I got to high school, they were shocked because I'd been put in a track of, readers who could, kids who couldn't really read. But I'm quite an accomplished reader at this point in my life, which I consider one of my great overcoming stories, So thank you so much, everyone. This has been great fun. I will post this so everybody can see the recording if you'd like. And thanks again. Joy, thanks. Jan, thanks so much for participating again. It's really great to have you here. All right. And all of your input at various stages along the way. Thank you, John. As always, my dear friend, thank you.
Thank you, dear.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.